And I have really, really, really curly hair, and I used to take my bangs and like rat them. I wouldn't look in the mirror because I didn't need the mirror. I knew they looked good. I could see if I looked up just how high they went, and I was so proud of them. Like I would go to school like, yeah. And this one kid one time said, "Why do you do your hair like that?" And I was like, "Well, duh, because it looks good." And I believed it. Like I didn't have to have anybody tell me ever that it didn't look good because I just felt good. And I want you guys to go back to that little girl or boy. There's like a couple boys in here. I want you to go back to that for a minute. That place where you just believed in yourself. Not because anybody told you you were cool, your bangs looked good, but because you just were. And then I was at elementary school one time and I ended up breaking my arm. And at first, like I looked down and I knew it was broken. I'd done this, like you sit on the bar and you do this flip off and you land on your feet, and I had done it a million times. But this time my foot caught and I landed off this huge high bar on my arm. And I knew it was broken because I'd broken my arm before, but I couldn't really feel it. I'm like, okay, yeah, my arm's broken, I gotta go to the office. And I got to the office and I was like, yeah, my arm's just broken, I need to go to the doctor. So my mom came, took me to the doctor, and the minute I got there, so for a while it didn't hurt, right? The minute I got there though, this nurse goes, here, does this hurt? And as soon as she touched it, bam. Yes, that's exactly where it hurts. Oh, it's where it hurts. And we solved the problem. She figured out it was a broken arm. She did x-rays, and my arm was in a cast for, felt like 7 years, but it was probably like 7 weeks. And by the time my cast came off, I felt good. I haven't thought about my broken arm at all. But mainly because I acknowledged, as soon as she pointed out, okay, does this hurt? I was like, yes, right there, it hurts. So then, about a year later, my parents got divorced. But it was one of those, like my dad was at work and we just like took off. And I remember looking out of the back of the truck, thinking, you know what, if he loved me, I will see his car following us. And it never came. We went to my grandparents' house and life moved on, but I felt like in that moment I was in a lot of pain. But my mom would ask me if it was okay, but it wasn't something like, yeah, that's where it hurts, right there, that hurts. We need to fix it. And I feel like it just kind of like planted this seed of looking for evidence. I don't know if you guys ever look for evidence, but so much in my life, and I know a lot of the people that I work with one-on-one, you go back to those moments, and from that moment you started looking for evidence, mainly to prove what you thought was true wrong, but then the other half of you, the other part of your inner child, or whatever we call it, the other half wanted to prove that everybody else was wrong. So you go through, like, you're not really that kid anymore that's just carefree and having fun and didn't care what your bangs look like, but you're just searching, constantly wondering if anybody thinks you're enough. And then if somebody treats you as if you are, you're doubting who they are. Why would they treat me like that? Because I know I'm not enough. And so we go through like life just battling ourselves. We go through life. I was working with a girl the other day and she was like, you know what, if my husband, if he could just be this and this and this and this, then I would know I was loved. And we went on through the day and I'm like, okay, so if he was that and that and that, eventually after she had told me some of the other things going on, if he was that and that and that, how would you accept him? If he came home with flowers every day and he rubbed your feet, she's like, well, I wouldn't accept him, it wouldn't be real. And I was like, okay. So who really has the problem? Is it your husband or is it you? And she was like, well, when I was a kid, my mom did this, and my mom had this favorite daughter, and I was never the daughter, and we started going a little deeper, and this belief that she had that she wasn't lovable was from way more than her husband never bringing her flowers, or her husband never rubbing her feet, or the things that she thought was going to bring her that happiness. So as I've gone back myself, I challenge all these people all the time, and then when I'm triggered, I have to challenge myself back to moments of that pain, of saying, okay, this is where it kind of hurts. It's really easy to see it in other people and help them work through it and find that it wasn't their husband that wasn't treating them like this. You know, it's easy to help other people, but today I want to I want to let you know that it's not easy for me either. It's not easy. I have an amazing father-in-law right now who is, well, he has terminal cancer, and he's got nurses at his house helping him, and he hasn't got much time, but the past 2 months probably, that fog just keeps coming back. And like the girls earlier today were talking about, it brings you back to all of the pain, clear to the first time you ever felt pain. If you don't go back and rework those beliefs that you've taken on. What trauma isn't that you went through something hard when you were little and your parents got divorced and then all this other stuff happened. It's those beliefs that you took on in that moment about yourself. For me, the biggest one from that moment when my parents got divorced is I wasn't enough. Because I have evidence if I was, he would have followed my car. And that little voice in my head, see? Oh, yep. That friend was rude to you. They had a birthday party and they talk about it all the time. They didn't invite you. Evidence, check. And there's just this little person in my head always, I felt like my whole life looking for evidence of why I wasn't enough. But then another little part of me wanted to prove them all wrong. Because I wanted to be enough. And so then I started to be like, you know what? Okay, my mom got remarried and things felt really good then. But I still had that little thing inside me, you're not enough. And I remember in high school looking around, and I'm kind of a tall girl for wanting to choose to do cheerleading, and I always felt just like husky. Like I was just huge when I look at myself in the mirror. And so it was easy for me to just slide into this, I gotta control something, I'm just not gonna eat. That'll be pretty easy. And every time that I would go to eat, I would hear that voice, oh, okay, fatty, there you go. Yeah, eat something. See how that goes. And so I became in this battle with myself. I wanted to be enough. And I thought, you know, okay, when I turn 16, that's gonna be like the magical day. I'm gonna wait for that. It's gonna be amazing. And I turned 16 and I was sitting on my bed and I'm like, yes, this is it. Somebody's gonna come, I'm gonna have a boyfriend for the next few years, and it's gonna be so fun because they're gonna tell me that I'm enough, and that little broken thing inside of me that makes me feel like I'm not, it's just gonna go away. It's gonna be awesome. And I sat on my bed, I'm like, everybody should know it's my birthday. My friend put signs like literally everywhere at school. My phone didn't ring. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, he's gonna come, and we're gonna go on that first date. And I think it was like 6 months later when I went on my first date, and I asked a boy to go to the dance with me. Like, not at all what I had pictured in my mind, but it was fun, I guess. Then I grew up, going through high school. I was the new girl a lot. My mom remarried when I was going into 9th grade, and I was new in St. George. And then we decided to move up to Highland, Utah, and I was new again. And so I never really felt like anybody knew me. Like I was just kind of thrown into high school. Everybody was friends with each other, and I was like just this new weird girl. So I used that as an excuse a lot. Like, you know what, maybe boys don't really like me just because, they don't know me. But then it was evidence again. That little voice going, yeah, use that one, that'll make you feel better. But it's really because you are not enough. Because if you were, that phone wouldn't ring. If you were, you would have boys knocking down your door. And so all through high school, I really tried to engage and outwardly show that I didn't ever feel those things. And I started dating a guy my senior year. He was like 23 years old. He was adorable, but that's besides the point. But he promised me that he was going to take me to my senior prom. So I told everybody at school I already had a date. And like 2 days before the prom, he was like, you know what, I'm gonna go dirt biking with my married friend in Moab. Do you want to just come with us? I'm like, yeah, with your married friend. And no, I'm not gonna do that. So my senior prom, I sat home and I heard the fireworks go off, and there it was again. Like, look at this. If you were enough, he would want to take you to this prom. You wouldn't be sitting at home with your sisters like a loser. All my friends were going. They planned on me going with them. Evidence, always, just showing me this belief that I had just clung to. And so I decided to map my life out according to this guy still. And I signed up to go to UVSC. Well, it's not UVSC for you young people, but it was a college in Provo. And I got there the day that you got to register, and I got all my classes, and I went to go look at each one, and I got to the first door, and I kept getting this feeling like, this is not where you're supposed to be. And I was like, oh yeah, it is, because remember the plan? He's right here, and every single door I went to that day, by the time I was about to leave there, I was just in tears. And I'm like, Heavenly Father, come on. I need to be here. I have this person who kind of likes me, I think, and I just want to be with him. And I just kept feeling, so I got in my car and I called my mom and I'm like, hey, so I guess I'm not going there. I'm gonna go up to Logan and let him know that I'm gonna come to Utah State. For some reason, I just like, she's like, you're just gonna go? I'm like, yep. So I'm going, and I went up to Utah State, and luckily they had like one more day that you could get signed in, and somehow I got in and registered and found an apartment to live in. And I got to college, and I didn't know anybody. I had all these roommates, and a couple of them were friends. They were all really sweet girls, but I would go home at night, and they would be like, come with us, come do this. And I was like, I think I'm just gonna go in my room. And I wouldn't really like live the college life because I thought I needed that guy. Thought I needed him. And every time my phone would ring, I'm like, okay, it's him. And every time I was walking to school, I would hear like these big diesel trucks, and I'm like, he's here. And this belief in my mind that if he loved me enough, or if I was lovable, he was gonna show up for me. And he didn't. And so eventually my second year of college, I kind of realized that that wasn't going to be a go, and I started dating everyone. I started working at the school gym, and all the cute guys at school were asking me out, and it was fun, but I was just like, I don't know why he even likes me. I would take them home to my family, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, this must be like a pity date, maybe? I don't know. Probably a pity date. But then they would get all serious, and then I'd be like, no, you don't want me. And then one day, I was working at the gym, and this kid that I worked with came down and was like, hey, I need you to bring these towels up in 5 minutes. And he kept winking. I'm like, stop winking, what are you doing? He's like, just bring the towels up. And I walked upstairs, and this kid that I had noticed like a week earlier, well, he wasn't a kid, he was a man. That my friend said, hey, I just want to introduce you guys. Both kind of have connections in Boise. Both your dads live there, and I don't know. And I'm like, okay. And we started talking, and my roommates had all asked me to go on a roommate date, but I had told them I wasn't gonna go. And in that moment, I'm like, hey, do you wanna go on a roommate date with me? What does that mean? You don't know what that means. Do you wanna go on a date with me? And he's like, sure. So that night I picked him up, and we went on our first date, and then we went on a date every single day after that, and within like 4 months or something, we were married. Like, it was just so fast, and it felt right. And guess what? For the first time in my life, I felt like that feeling that I wasn't enough was gone. Totally gone. Like, everything that I did, he thought it was adorable. Everything that he did, I thought it was amazing. And we were just like two peas in a pod. And I remember we were selling pest control. He was selling pest control. I was nannying down in Arizona. And I was like, I feel like I'm like ready to be a mom. And he was like, I'm ready. And we started our family. And our first, these two little girls over here, were identical twin girls named Boston and Bailey. And everything just went so smooth, except for Boston was blue when she was born, but you were still cute. And not like they were probably a year old, and I was like, all right, I'm ready for another kid. And we had Teague, and he's hilarious. And then I had a couple of miscarriages, and I didn't really understand, like, this is like this one thing that I'm really good at, like I made 3 of them. Why are we struggling with this? My parents got divorced when I was a kid, like I've checked off the hard stuff. And the first miscarriage, I remember I was on the bathroom floor for hours, and in the middle of the night, I walked up to go to bed, and I could hear Bailey in her room whispering to herself. And I walked in, I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I don't know, I just couldn't sleep. And I told her what was going on, and I just started sobbing. And she goes, Mommy, you shouldn't be sad. that baby's supposed to be Jesus. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's true. And I didn't really think much of it. And then a few months later, I had another miscarriage, probably 6 months later. And then I got pregnant again, and they were telling me I was miscarriaging. And I remember going home and like, you know what the heck, Heavenly Father, I need some evidence that you're proud of me because I feel like I've done a lot of things right. And I just kind of waited, and I'm like, you know what, fine, I'm just gonna go this time. I'm not gonna carry around dead babies anymore, and I want them to give me a D&C. And I went to the doctor and I'm like, okay, here's the deal. I have been carrying around dead babies for like 9 months, and I don't want to do it anymore. So I need you to just do that D&C thing you did last time and get it out so I can go enjoy Christmas and not think about this whole baby thing anymore. And he's like, all right, let me just get the ultrasound machine. And he left, and he wasn't back for like an hour. Like I sat on this, it felt like a meat market chalkboard without any pants on. And I was covered for like an hour. He had all these things come up. He went and did a delivery, and he got back, and he did the little ultrasound. And I'd been waiting alone in this room. And in that room, you know those dark fogs that we say we get, like all that evidence is triggers to take us. And I just sat there thinking, you know what, I'm not even capable of being a mom. Like everybody else can just have babies, and apparently I'm not even good at that. And I had sat in there for the whole time just feeling sorry for myself. And all of a sudden this ultrasound machine is on, and he's like, oh my gosh. And I was like, what? Now I got cancer? What? And he was like, actually this baby has a heartbeat. And I'm like, I was bleeding for like 5 days. There's no way the baby has a heartbeat. And he said, well, the baby has a heartbeat, so you need to go home and keep trying that progesterone we put you on last time. Something's working. I don't know if this baby's gonna be okay. And like 6 months later, 7 months later, she was born perfectly healthy, Clea. Little miracle girl. Then we moved not long after that to Meridian, Idaho. And I remember that feeling of, we are complete. For a split second, I had this little baby, and when she was 9 months old, I felt like I was supposed to have another baby kid. And I was pregnant with her the second I decided that I wanted to be pregnant with her, and no problem, or with him, excuse me. Don't tell Titus I call him her. And through his whole pregnancy, I just kept getting those old feelings back. Like I had been pretty steady as a mom. I never really suffered with postpartum, which I know a lot of you maybe have. I like having babies besides those 2 miscarriages just like felt so calm, and my body handled it okay. And in this pregnancy, I just kept like, every day I would have these doubts come in my mind. When I go to Emmett's office, I was like, something feels so weird. Like we have our house and you have this job. I didn't even say this to him, but in my mind, I'm like, what is wrong with you, Ashlee? Look at all this evidence of your blessings. You were good, and you were blessed for it. Look, you were pregnant with your 5th baby, found out it was a boy, and I pictured that in that moment as evidence of me being good. That I was being rewarded because I was so good. Because I had chosen good choices in high school. Because I had overcome some of these dark feelings that had come over me and made me feel worthless. And I thought that those were my blessings. So those are called expectations. We're going to talk about those a little later. And so I kept like pinching myself, like stop having that. Nothing's wrong. Like everything is good. You have these beautiful children. The twins are in kindergarten. Everything is good. And towards Christmas time, it was so bad that I was like shaking all the time. And I would get my kids from school, and I'd come home, and I'd just kind of like sit on my couch, big old belly, and I'd be like, okay, you know what? Something's got to be wrong. And I started going through the garbage. Like I'd go in my backyard where my little garbage cans were, and I'd start like rummaging through the garbage. Like there's got to be evidence of something. Something's wrong, and I don't know that it's me, because I've been doing really good. And I would go through the garbage, and when my husband would come home, when he was in the shower or something, I'd get in his truck and I'd be like, there's got to be something to explain this feeling. And January came, and Titus was born on the 15th of January. And even at the hospital, I like would look down at my hands and I'm like, what is going on? And Emmett would have to run into work and he'd come back, but it just like felt hazy. And I kept shaking and I would look around the hospital and I had this beautiful baby boy. And I love so much baby boy. I don't know what's wrong with your mama. I'm gonna figure it out. So by the time I got home, people were at my house for weeks, helping out and just being with our family. And by the time they all left, I got my girls to school one day and I walked over to, well, I was going to pick them up and I walked over and their teacher was like, hey, can we talk about the note that was in their backpack? And I was like, what note? And she was like, oh, they got in a fight. Kindergartners, okay? The cutest things you've ever seen. Kindergartners. They got in a fight and they like pushed this boy down and it wasn't good. And I was like, oh, okay. And I burst into tears. And I'm like, I don't even know why you're crying. Like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, you know, something's not okay at our house. I'm not sure. I just be patient with them. We're gonna figure it out. Everything's gonna be okay. And I went and jumped in my car and I just started bawling and bawling and bawling. And I'm like, Heavenly Father, what is going on? Like, I feel like I'm doing everything right. These kids are healthy. You said it's a little blip. Like, they feel it too. The what is going on? I need you to show me what's happening. And I pulled over in the next parking lot in the kids' school. And I texted like 20 of my family members, which was a bold step. I hadn't done that and I didn't even know what was wrong. So with the risk of being told I was crazy by another person, I texted all these people and just said, please pray for us. I don't know what's going on, but I need you to pray for us. And of course, that's a good way to freak your family out. Let's note that, okay? Don't do that. Like, maybe find out some more information. And I remember throughout the day people texting me back, and I was like, I wish I had answers for you. I don't know, something isn't right. And every day, Emmett got a little bit further and further away. I don't know what I just said, but it was good. Further and further away. And each night he would come home, I would try to gauge, like, what? Is it him? Is it me? Like, what is happening? We wouldn't have any, like, huge fights or anything. So I was just, like, waiting for evidence. Like, yell at me. Tell me I'm doing something wrong so I can fix it. I need evidence of something. Just somebody, somewhere, give me evidence of what is going on because I can't keep living like this. And he ended up deciding to go on a trip, and he headed out with his brother. And while he was gone, I remember just sitting at my house like, okay, is something going to happen to him while he's gone? And then I had a couple of dreams that my baby died, and I was like, wait, no. That's not, I'm not strong enough for that, first of all. And that's not what I signed up for here, so, no. And then one night when he was gone, my son started screaming and saying, my dad died, and I was like, no, buddy, no, I promise. This is a strong word that I wouldn't recommend using a lot. I promise you he's okay. I promise you everything's gonna be okay. I promise you that he's gonna come home from that trip and everything's gonna be okay. And he still didn't sleep that whole night. He just kept screaming and screaming that his dad died. I said, no, buddy, it's just a dream. I promise you everything's gonna be okay. And I remember when Emmett came home, the night he was coming home, I was really nervous for him to come home. Part of me was like, okay, if he gets in a plane wreck or something, then I can't do that. But if he comes home and everything's not normal, like that's just more evidence of my worthlessness, and I really don't want to do that. And I remember going into this counselor that day, and I was like, okay, here's the deal, buddy. My parents got divorced when I was younger. I've got like super trust issues or something going on. I don't know what's wrong in my marriage. Like honestly, I have no idea. And maybe it's me. Maybe you need to fix me. Maybe I've like put so much into these kids and he doesn't, I don't know what it is, but I need you to fix me, like right now. And he was like, oh, okay. Could you like bring your husband in with you? And like, no, he's not here, but I need you to, I like right now, because something's wrong. And he sat and listened to me for like an hour, and then at the end he was like, Ashlee, you know those feelings like something's wrong? And like the minute he said that, I'm like, yes. Utah State, or UVSC. I remember feeling something's wrong. At one time when I was leaving work and I almost got kidnapped by that crazy person at Macaroni Grill, I knew something was wrong and I had gone to get help. Like I know that feeling. But there's always been like evidence of what is wrong, and this time I can't find it. Like nothing's really wrong. So I really, really, really need you to fix me. And he was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Next Monday, I want you to bring your husband back here, and we'll figure it out. The three of us will just figure out what's wrong, and everything's going to be okay. I promise. Everything's going to be okay. He's like, okay. All right. And on the way home, I stopped at one of my church leaders, and I did the same thing, and I just started all this stuff, and I don't know what's really wrong. Like, I don't know how to tell you to help me, but can you help me? And he was like, I want to. I really do. How about, like, on Sunday, you bring your husband in, and we all sit down, all three of us together, and we figure out what's going on, and we work together, and we fix it. And I was like, okay. All right, so Monday, I can do Sunday and Monday. We're doing this. And I started marching home, and by the time I got home, I was, like, shaking again. And we went over to a good friend who's here today. She invited our family to go over for a family night activity. And we were sitting in her house, and I still couldn't stop shaking. And she goes, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm so good. Everything's good. And at the end of it, her husband at our church, or the men in our church can give what's called a blessing. And he said, hey, can I give you a blessing? Can I lay my hands on your head and just give you a blessing? And I was like, sure. I don't know what's wrong. I don't even know what I'm telling, what you're going to tell me, because I don't know what's wrong. Like, I have no evidence of anything, but something's wrong. And he was like, I know. And he came over to my house that night with his wife while my kids were in bed, and he blessed me with a couple of things. I don't even know if he remembers this, but he blessed me that angels would be with me. Like, in 10 different ways, he talked about angels. And I hadn't thought much in my life about angels. I hadn't thought much in my life about angels up to that point. And they left that night, and I was waiting for Emmett to get home, and I was like, angels? What does that even mean? Like, I mean, you hear about angels, like, on movies and stuff, but I'm going to be blessed with angels? Okay, that's good, because I feel like I'm a crazy person. And Emmett came home that night, and things were just strange. Like, he just wasn't himself. He wasn't the happy guy that I knew. And so I started thinking, you know what, maybe he's on, like, some pill or something, I don't know. And so I started looking for more evidence. And that was a Monday. No, that was not. I think that was I don't remember. You'll have to read my book because I can't remember these dates. I think it was a Monday, actually. And by Thursday, I had gone through everything. I'd gone through his bags. I'd gone through a million things trying to figure out what was wrong with him, but mainly because I needed evidence that I wasn't going crazy. Because every time I tried to talk to him about anything, he would just be like, no, you're crazy, everything's good, I have the best job, I'm doing so great. And so I didn't necessarily look for stuff to help him, I just really wanted to reassure myself that I was okay, that I was going to be enough sometime, that he was going to come back and start telling me that I was beautiful, or he was going to start telling me that everything that I did was worth it. Because for the most part, I had given birth, I had taught my children, I had cooked dinner for him. So I thought, I really need him to come back, because then I can come back. This broken thing inside of me is maybe because he's like off busy doing all this stuff, so maybe if he's more engaged in me, I'll be more engaged in me too. And so on Friday, I woke up, I'm probably one of the most stubborn person you'll meet. Like, once I set my mind to something, I was like, you know what? Today it's gonna happen. He's gonna come home and he's gonna know how much I love him. He's gonna see these kids, and whatever he's struggling with or I'm struggling, we're gonna figure it out today. And I went to the store and I bought like $200 worth of laundry baskets. I don't know why that's nothing to do with the story. It's so weird. Every time I look at the laundry baskets, it reminds me of this day. It's so weird. I was like out of my mind. That's the evidence of the out of your mind. So I bought all these laundry baskets, and I got all of his favorite meals. I cooked like 3 meals that night. Because I thought, the more I put into this, the more I'm gonna get out. Because that's how marriage works, right? Every single book you read on marriage, the more you put in, the more you're gonna get out. So I just kept putting things in. 3 meals that night, his favorite meals, all on this table, and he was supposed to be home at like 6 o'clock. And around 8 o'clock, he rolled in, and the kids were still awake because I was determined for him to see their cute little faces. So if he was struggling with something, he'd be able to remember how cute they were and want to be home with them. And he saw them, and he didn't take one vitamin meal that night, all 3 meals. He didn't say much to the kids. But at one point, I remember a friend of ours that I'd reached out to and asked, he's a marriage and counselor, and he called them, and I was like, yes, that's the call. And I thought, he's gonna help him. And Emmett went into the back room, and over the baby monitor, I could hear him talking to this friend. I'm like, here it is, I'm gonna get my evidence. He's gonna say, Ashlee's just an idiot, and she does this, and then I can fix it. I wanted that evidence so I could fix it. And I sat by the baby monitor for a minute, contemplating whether I should give him privacy or not, and I decided not to. And so I held it, and the things that he was saying, like, I got darker and darker every time he spoke. And everything that he said wasn't true. And I knew it not to be true because the things that he was saying couldn't be possible because I had just had a baby, first of all. But second of all, I was home taking care of his babies, and I was doing laundry, and I was making 3 meals for him that night. So I sat there listening, and I was like, oh, great. Maybe I am crazy. Okay. And eventually I turned off the monitor, and I went and tucked in the kids. And I came back down, and I'm like, okay, you know what? At least maybe he's gotten out whatever he was spewing, and we can talk now. And he came in, and I'm like, well, I guess maybe I should take a turn. Like if he's gonna help us. And he's like, what is he gonna help us with? He's like, I don't know, something, whatever's going on, maybe he can help us. He was like, yeah, sure, go take a turn. You can use your own phone. And I was like, okay. And I got on the phone, and this friend, bless his heart, he was evidence of everything that I had feared. Ashlee, what are you doing to your family? What are you, and just started going off for me. I'm like, wait, no, I need you to listen. And he didn't want to hear it. And in the middle of our conversation, Emma walked over and was like, hey, I'm gonna go over into Loving real fast. I gotta this cold, I'll be right back. And I felt it. Just like I felt at UBSC, I felt it. That no, something isn't right. And just like I'd been feeling for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I put the phone down, and I was like, hold on a second. I really need you to stay here tonight. I know that you've been going off and doing your thing, but this is what's important, and I need you to be here now. And he said, no, I'm gonna go. Don't tell me what to do. And I just remember the door slamming, and my baby woke up and started screaming. And I would say that was probably 9 o'clock, but I really don't know any concept of time. And I remember the baby crying, and I got off the phone, and I sat there, and I'm like, it's gonna be okay, baby. I couldn't tell him, I promise. And I held him, and he cried, and I held him, and I would go to get my phone, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna call somebody. I need somebody to tell me that everything's gonna be okay. And I reach for my phone, and I'm like, or I'm gonna call somebody, and they're gonna have more evidence of my worthlessness, and they're gonna tell me I'm crazy, or they're gonna tell me that maybe I'm not enough, or I need to be better. And I can't do that right now. And so I just held this baby as he cried and cried and cried. About 10 o'clock, his cry got so loud, I couldn't even hear my own thoughts. And I was like, something's wrong. And I picked up my phone, and I called Emmett 3 times in a row, and I texted him a couple times, are you okay? Something's wrong. No answer. And about midnight, I was still bouncing, reading marriage self-help books, grabbing the Bible, and I just we're gonna find an answer, baby. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. I think everything's gonna be okay. And I remember the baby stopping at midnight. His crying stopped, and my house went silent. And I'm like, gosh dang, you don't leave me. Don't leave me alone. And I put him down. And I remember saying a prayer, and I'm like, Heavenly Father, I feel so alone. What is going on, and why can't I figure it out? I'm a really smart girl. At least that's what you told me. I'm really smart, and I can't figure it out. I just need something to tell me that everything's going to be okay. And 5 minutes later, I was asleep. I don't remember anything after that. Until about 1 o'clock, I heard this knock on my door like this. And I remember waking up, and that reassurance that I wanted from someone, I'm like, okay, somebody's gonna tell me it's gonna be okay. But I was shaking, and I started walking to my door, and I'm like, everything's gonna be okay. And I went to open the door, and I was expecting a sheriff to say he got in a wreck, He's okay, you need to come to the hospital. And my expectation was like here. I was gonna get to the hospital and everything that I had wanted that day, him to be like, hey, I love you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being here, helping me. He was gonna have to need me. So I had this image in my mind that that's what the door knock was gonna be. And I walked to the door and it was just like these 3 people, one was pregnant. They looked like normal people and I was like, oh, heck no. And I went to shut the door. And they were like, hold on, are you Ashlee Corrigan? And I was like, yeah. Could you tell me where he is so I can go see him? And they were like, actually, we need to come in. And I was like, no, you're not coming to my house. My kids are asleep, my husband's not here. Just go ahead and tell me what you came to tell me, and I will let you be on your way. And I don't even know how long we battled this. They wanted to come in. And pretty soon, my sister Ashlee pulls up, and her boyfriend, she'd been in her boyfriend's way too late, let's note that. Okay, girls?
Sorry.
And he had said, you know what, you need to go over to Ashlee's. She pulled up, and I was like, okay, I'm safe. Ashlee is here, you may come in with my sister. And we walked in like 2 feet, and I'm like, okay, go ahead, and let's talk. And they wouldn't look me in the eye. You know that feeling where you're like, I don't know if I'm trust. They were just so like, oh, no, we need you to sit down. And so we all went on my black couch and sat down. And I remember right when the words came out, thinking, nope, this isn't my life. This isn't the evidence I was searching for. The man started talking and just said, hi, do you know so-and-so? Apparently there was an affair and there was a gun and the husband came and your husband has been shot 2 times and he didn't make it. And I don't remember much after that. And I don't even know if those were the words that he said. That's what I remember. I just remember little bits and pieces of evidence. Different kind of evidence than I had expected that night. A lot of truth. Truth that I wasn't crazy. Truth that something was going on in my marriage. But a really hard truth that I no longer had one. And as a girl who had used that marriage as almost an addiction of validating her worth, I didn't just lose a husband or a life that I had planned. I lost me. And I went into this cave of, you know what? I didn't like him anyway. It's gonna be easier that way, Ashlee. Just go with that story. Just pretend that you hate him. Because somebody that loved you would never do what happened to you. Somebody that loved you wouldn't leave you by dying, fighting for some other girl. That's all the evidence you need. There is more to you. Let me tell you. And I started believing this list of worthless thoughts that felt like truth, because all the truths that I heard that night were pretty worthless. So it was easy for those beliefs to come right in with them. You are not enough, you never have been. If you need to, we can go over the evidence of all of the times in your life you were not. You are worthless, unlovable, and all these things just drilled in my mind, and I'm like, you know what? Nope, I'm just gonna pretend those aren't there, and I'm gonna be okay, and I'm gonna go in my closet. Me and Heavenly Father, we're pretty tight. He's gonna make an exception. Those angels, I was promised angels, he's gonna give me a do-over. Like this whole night, it's gonna be like a movie where we can go back and change it. And I went in with this expectation that God was gonna change things for me, because I thought I was pretty special, I used to at least. And I walked in my closet and I kneeled down and I was like, okay, all right, I need some evidence that you're here. Let's talk about evidence. I need evidence that you love me enough to give me a do-over, because this isn't the life that I signed up for when I had these 5 kids. I'm not going to let them deal with this as their new story. No, I'm not okay with it. And like any bullheaded girl, I sat there for a little bit. And like any wise father, he let me sit in silence for a little bit. But pretty soon, when I got rid of all my anger and hate, I heard a couple of words. Forgiveness was one of them. Angels was another one. worth was another one. And in my mind, I could hear these words that God believed in me. And I wish I could say I walked out of my closet like armed to take on the rest of the things that I was going to have to face, because I absolutely did not. But I knew in that perfect moment that he loved me. He loved me enough to teach me and put me on the path that he needed me, which at that time I still didn't know why. But in that moment, I knew that he was going to show me how. That he was going to help me find that worth again. And I thought for a second, when I was in that closet, that meant it was going to be easy. Like, okay, forgiveness. I've got 3 people that I'm going to have to forgive. And right now, can I do it right now? Can we just get this over with and I can like move on? And I thought maybe that's what he meant. But he didn't. Because I walked out of that closet to a house full of people I didn't know. Just strangers who all wanted to offer empathy that I couldn't receive because I didn't know how, who all wanted to offer love, and who all wanted to offer all of these things. But a lot of times, the strangers that were trying to offer the things that they thought I needed, I think sometimes by not allowing people in, it hurt me more. Like I was like, you know what, I can do this. We're gonna march. We're gonna march. Come on, kids. We're gonna move forward. And we're good. We're good. And I would put on that face everywhere I went. I remember going one time, I would take my kids sometimes to the park. That was the thing they loved. So they kept asking and asking and asking. And so I remember one time I put on these high heels, and I think I was wearing like a skirt. I have little babies, okay? So like 2 months old to kindergartners. I was so afraid of going out in public and giving anybody evidence of why I wasn't enough. So I spent most of my time trying to make sure nobody had evidence to why I wasn't enough. I was so scared for someone to be like, oh, no wonder. That was like my greatest fear. And fear drove me. I remember going to my kids, my twins' kindergarten graduation, all dressed up, trying so hard not to cry. And somebody came over and was like, hey, nobody ever said, how are you? But she was like, hey, and do you know what I did? I didn't want to show her any of the real feelings. I didn't want to, like the broken arm, where we could pinpoint what hurts. I didn't want to let anybody for that. So I just started going off, making fun of the 3 people that I needed to forgive. And it didn't help. Every time I would do that, it just made it worse. And I remember I went to the trial. So anytime somebody's murdered, you have to go through a trial process. You have to go through a series of different things. But I remember going to the trial thinking, you know what? If I go in there and someone acknowledges how bad this has hurt for me, it's all going to go away. So I was like putting it all onto them. They're going to help me. So I showed up like, yes, come on. And I sat there for a month, and every single day hearing every detail of how my husband died. And I just sat there like, okay, there's got to be somebody. Somebody's going to be like, hey, how did that feel for you? And I was going to say it, and they were all going to care. And it was going to make everything feel better. I remember on the last day of the trial, I was in a room separated from everybody because the jury was out still. And they had finally come back, and I came walking in, and I'm like, okay, this is it. It's going to be like on Beauty and the Beast, you know, the rooftop, everything, like the light shines through the beast, and he's like all of a sudden handsome again. Yes, that's my moment. So I walked in, and I was a little bit late, and they were announcing, and the judge announced the verdict. And the room like went kind of black. And for the first time, it had been 1.5 years since Emmett died. For the first time, I saw something I didn't know existed. There was 2 moms in that room, one on this side of the courtroom and one on this side of the courtroom. 2 moms. One was going to lose her son to jail for a long, long time, and one had lost her son to murder. And neither of them won. Nobody won that day. And I was like, what on earth is this feeling? And I just kept looking between both of them. And I looked over to the one, and I cried for her, and then I cried for her. These 2 moms, and I went home, and I'm like, what was that? I thought I was the one hurting. Like, there's other people that hurt. But instead of it, like, helping me reach outside myself, I, like, went back inside and I'm like, that trial was supposed to be my healing. Like, I have waited every day. I got remarried. I've tried to live life, like, progressing. And everything still feels the same. Like, it's worse. Because now I'm not alone. Like, there's other people hurting, and I can't even fathom if those two are hurting, how other people are hurting. So I, like, hid in my house all weekend. And I was just, like, stuck between two worlds. I know Emily talked about, like, I had moved on and tried to love this new husband. I wasn't always a very good wife to him because I was still trying to figure out life, and I was waiting for this trial to fix me so I could be me. And now I wasn't. So I was kind of angry at God again. Like, I needed, like, evidence that everything was going to be okay. And I took my kids to school, and I made meals that next morning on Monday. And I remember getting to the grocery store, and I pulled in the stall, and I, like, sat there. And I, like, pray in my head a lot. I don't know if you guys do this, but in my car, it's, like, my place. And my little kids were in the back, but I was like, okay, here's the deal. So pretty much for a year and a half, I've waited for this trial. Like a psychopath waits for, I don't know, I just have waited like a crazy person thinking that it was gonna make me feel better, but it didn't. Like, all it did was make me realize that there's so many people that this involved. Like, it wasn't just me and the kids, it was all these other people. And I need you to send somebody, like, today, to fix this, because it hurts, and I don't know what to do about it. And I sat there in my quiet car, like a good father. He let me have my pity party by myself for a minute. And then I remember getting out of my car, and I was almost, like, ticked. Like, I needed an answer of something. And I was pushing my cart, and I got back to the bulk section of Winco. And this cute little lady was standing there, and I brushed past her. And, like, thunder lightning bolt in my mind. It was like, stop and help that lady. And I was like, nope. And I pushed my cart back, and I went over to the back, like, by the milk section. And I'm like, I'm gonna pretend that I'm getting groceries, but I'm kind of freaked out. Like, you can't just stop and help people at a grocery store. Like, she was holding a sign, and I was like, going over in my mind, here's all the reasons why I'm not going to stop and help her. That's weird. And I kept just fighting it, and I went back, and there she was again. I'm like, oh, stop seeing her, because then you're just gonna do it, and then you're gonna look like an idiot, and she's gonna think you're, and I was rationalizing in my head all the reasons why I wasn't worthy to help her, because I was a flippin' mess. Because all I ever did was hide of who I really was. I wouldn't tell people what hurt. I wouldn't tell anybody anything, and I just was a mess. And I was so afraid that if I went to help her and she rejected me, it'd be more evidence. And so I went down the baking aisle, and I was like, here's the thing. I can't even figure out how to be a mom. I for sure know that I'm not a good wife. I've got plenty of evidence of that over the last month, and I just, no, I can't help another person. And the lightning bolt was back. Get in your wallet and give her the money. And I, like, scrummaged through. I'm like, I don't have any money. And then in this little side pocket, a grandma had sent a $100 bill for a school movie, and I used my credit card. And I, like, pulled out this $100 bill, and I'm like, okay, this just got real. And I started walking towards the back of the store again. And, like, I gotta find this lady, and there she was. And I walked over, and I'm like, hello. You don't know me, and I actually am a crazy person, but I feel like I'm supposed to give you this. And she just, like, sat there and stared at it. And she grabbed it, and she gave me this big hug, and she's like, how did you know? How did you know? And I'm sitting here at $13 in my bank account, and I have nothing to feed my family. How did you know? And we just stared into each other's eyes for a minute, and I'm like, I don't have any clue, but I think that you have a Heavenly Father who loves you, who just needed you to know today that you're not alone, and that you're enough for him, that he wanted you to have this money. And she gave me a big hug, and we talked for a second, and then I took off. And so a year and a half, I had been waiting for a moment to change me. And I pictured that moment being something my new husband told me, that I was enough. Something that and people did. They had come for a year and a half to show me that I was loved, to clean my house, to help with my kids, to bring me food. Everybody had been doing everything for me. My husband before that had been doing everything for me, helping me find my worth because I just needed him to help me. And all of a sudden in that moment, Heavenly Father gave me this opportunity to help somebody else in her time of need. And I walked away from her. I'm not kidding you. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what love was like. Like I felt it in that courtroom with those two moms, and I felt it in my closet. But that's what love feels like. That's who I need to be. That's who I need to go home and be. Not the girl waiting around for someone to complete her, but the girl who finds her completeness by helping other people. And that was kind of my aha moment. There were so many of those. That one was the biggest one, though. It's the one that reminded me that there are so many people around us, so many people who want to know that they're enough. So if you think you are the only one, you're wrong. If you think that you're the only one waiting around for somebody else to come and tell you all of the truths that God has already told you a million times, you've just been too busy waiting for somebody else to come and tell you, you're wrong. His truth came with us. The minute we were born, those days when we were fluffing our bangs and had all that confidence, those were the truth. And the child that got hurt along the way, the girl or boy that has lost the vision of who they once were, that's who we need to get back to. And as adults, some of us, as grown-up children, the way we do that is first by acknowledging that other people exist. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to see other people's pain because I was so wrapped up in mine. And I'm going to call that a victim. So I want you guys to write down right now. What in my life makes me a victim? And I know some of you have stories like mine. Other people that have come and victimized you. And maybe that's what you'll write down at first. What in my life makes me a victim? Was it your mom who favored your sister? Was it a child that you lost? Was it a sickness that you've had your whole life? And now I want you to write down, how has my belief in this victimhood hurt me? I'm going to tell you guys how it hurt me. It hurt me because I wasn't the person that I should have been all the time. Because I relied on other people. I almost forced, I got married to Sean, and I know that we were supposed to get married, but a few weeks after we were married, I remember the first big trigger that came, and it was my victimhood. It kept me in this place. And I'm not saying triggers aren't real, but I didn't know what to do with them. And so I would go out of my mind, and I'd have this, a siren past our room, and I was having this panic attack, and I couldn't get my heartbeat to stop because it took me back to that moment that Emmett had died. It took me back to those bullets and that vision of thinking of the pain that happened with him and the pain that happened with me. It took me back to the moment where I had to tell my kids that their dad was gone. It took me back to that moment where I wished more than anything that I could have been the mom that they deserved. It took me back to all those moments, but mainly what it takes you back to, those triggers. It takes you back to those beliefs. Those beliefs. As soon as my parents got divorced, that belief that, hey, Ashlee, if he loves you guys, he's going to be following right behind you. Those beliefs that the voice in your head keeps nagging at you to tell you that you're worthless. That voice is not God. I don't know. I've never heard God say, dude, you're such a loser. I think what God wants us to do is hear a voice of truth. Hear a voice that says, hey, I'm still here. I know moments when I walked out of my room the day after I told my kids their dad died, and they were writing letters to the people of Japan and putting it in a box. And that light that I felt in that moment, that's exactly what I wish I could have held on to all those other dark moments. And when I'd be at the office and working with the detectives and signing off checks to old clients and doing that stuff, and I'd be so in that fog, and by the time I got home, everything was so dark, I didn't even want to be around my kids, and I couldn't feel their love. And then I would go into my baby's room when he woke up, and he'd fall asleep in my arms, and the baby monitor, or the song playing in his room would come on, and it was that Footprints in the Sand. Those are the moments that God is trying to teach us truth, that we are enough. He was trying to tell him to me in so many ways, and I couldn't hear him, except in those little glimpses. So today, as you guys all go home, this is your other assignment. I want you to write down, what is my purpose? What is my mission? What are my truths? Truths, not, oh, you need to lose 10 pounds. Oh, you need to be better at this. Oh, if you had only just kept practicing the piano, then you could be playing the piano like you want to. No. No more of that. No more hating ourselves for all the things we should have done. What are your truths right now? Who are you? Who does God want you to be today? Can't go back. The only thing I want you to go back for is to tell the girl that's hurting the truth she didn't know. Scream them to her. If every time you go back to those moments, she's still stuck in the fear. It's fear that destroys us. Fear that we're not enough. Fear that we have something to prove. Fear that we have to have evidence of our worth by everyone around us. Fear that the world is what is going to tell us that we have value. That's what holds us back. And I wish so bad that I could go back 6 years and just say, hey, little girl, get your bangs out. Fluff them as high as they can go, and you go out and be you. That's what I would tell her. I wouldn't go to the grocery store in high heels and have panic attacks because I was afraid someone was going to be there. I'd just be me. And the steps that it's taken me to find that girl again, I wouldn't really wish upon her, but I'm so grateful for them. I'm so grateful that Dr. Phil dupes you into going on his show and telling you that you're going to help people, and really he sends you into a month-long panic attack. I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Dr. Phil. If you're ever going to see this, I'm just kidding. I'm grateful for moments like that, because I walked onto that show, and as soon as they brought her out, I thought, you know what? If she could tell me that she's sorry, I'm going to feel better. I started believing it again. I started buying into that baloney, that if she tells me I'm enough, then I can forgive and I can move forward. And guess what? For a month, I sat at my window every day like I had when Emmett first died, and I stared out the window at night instead of sleeping. And I prayed harder than I'd ever prayed, that those angels that he promised me could take that darkness away. Because it's real. And it's real for each one of you. Every single one of you have a story, and you could be on this stage probably telling better stories than any of us up here. Because your story is real. Your pain is real. Those fears are real. People have hurt you for real. People haven't given you the things that you deserve for real. But God always will. So anytime that little voice in your head is saying, oh, you deserve something way better than this. You deserve to be so much more than somebody's cooking. All those little voices that are telling you that you deserve more, those aren't real. What we deserve is what we have. But how we become more deserving is by taking care of what we've been given. Making the most of every single minute. And I wish I could say that was easy, because it's not. And forgiveness of others is so important. And I heard a quote a long time ago. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and realize that the prisoner was you. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and realize that the prisoner was you. And it's by Lewis Smedes or something like that, if you want to look it up. But that's the quote that kind of got me out of a funk of thinking that I needed other people. When I was little, I always had, like when someone did something wrong, they come over, hey, I'm sorry, oh, me too, okay, let's be friends. And in this situation where I had these 3 people and an actual prisoner, and once I realized that to forgive him, to forgive my husband who had not protected the one thing that I thought I was worthy of, to forgive the other women, all of the people in my story, to forgive them, it wasn't going to be by them coming and completing me. It was going to be me realizing that I had been the prisoner. And that's what we are, you guys. When we are stuck in our stories, the fear of our story, I want you to own your story. Instead of fearing your story, fearing that it could happen again in your life, fearing that it happened and that you're going to be triggered back to it and that you're just going to be a mess all the time, the fear of your story is what's holding you back. Owning your story. So if I could, I want each one of you come and tell me your name. This is what I tell I teach art for a bunch of my kids' classes. And the beginning of the year, they stand up and go, hi, my name is Kalia, and I drew this whale, and I'm stupid, and they sit down. Okay, and I'm like, oh, no. You made that artwork. You get up here and you tell everybody how awesome it is because you clearly thought it was cool when you were making it. And I teach them to get up and say, hello, my name is Ashlee Burke. I am the wife of a man who was having an affair and was murdered. I am the mother of 5, now 6 beautiful children. And I am still me. And that's what I want you guys to do. There is no reason why we have to be afraid of what the world thinks of us. You watch TV and you read magazines and you get on social media, you're going to find evidence. A whole lot of evidence. But what you're not going to find most of the time is truth. Because truth can only come from within us. From the Creator, whoever you believe in as your Creator. Clearly I believe in mine as God. Whoever your Creator is, it can only come from Him because He was the one that sent you here to remember it. And that is our mission. I had no idea my mission would include getting on a stage and telling people something that I thought I had to be humiliated about. I had no idea that my mission would be what it is. And each of you, I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. I had no idea. But here you are. For a reason. Because Heavenly Father, God, whoever created you, He believes in you right where you are. And I believe that with all my heart. And I'm so grateful for the faith He put in me long ago. And this path that He has asked me to go on, because each one of you, as I hug you and I learn from you, I get stronger. And I'm so grateful for the blessings in my life and for this mission. So as you go home tonight, focus on those things, your truth. If you hear those voices in your head, you ask. Just get on your knees and pray. Is this real? Is this feeling that I'm feeling that tells me I'm stupid, ugly, fat, dumb, nobody loves me, nobody wants me, everybody hates me? Are those real? You pray for an answer like that and He will tell you. He'll tell you truth. You write them all down and you cross them out and you find the ones that are real, because that is where you're going to find your mission and your purpose. That's where you're going to find the evidence of what is real. So in a world that wants evidence all the time, evidence of all sorts of things, we have trials, we have all these things, evidence I think that you need is going to come from Him. Not another person, not another thing. Not all of us have our addictions, not your addiction, chocolate, the gym. I don't care what your addiction is, we all have them. Let go of those for a minute and connect to God. And ask Him how you can connect to your purpose and your mission and how you can show the people around you what they deserve. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I have a little surprise. Get up here, you two. Please. Okay. So the song that they're going to sing, the first time I heard it, I bawled my face off. And it was sung by Sia. And I really connected to it. And then one day Bailey came downstairs and said, Mom, I'm going to sing a song for the talent show. I want to try out. And she started singing, and here's your song. And then like 2 days ago, Boston's like, hey, can I create some music to play on the piano? So they're gonna perform for you right now. This is Bailey and Boston. There's going to be a quiz after. Um, that song is just my favorite. That's how we all need to live our lives. I want to tell you one more little story, then we're gonna have our friends come up here. So I was driving to my aunt's house one day, and we pulled into her house, and it was kind of one of those days where I was getting away, and the man in jail had gotten out on bail, and all this crazy stuff was happening at home, and my mom and I were like, let's just get out of here. And we pulled up to my aunt's house, and it was like, everything's gonna be good once we're out of town. And I got this phone call, and this sweet lady on the other end was like, hey, so you heard he got out of jail, and we want to know what part of the trial do you want to be at? Do you want to be at all the hearings? And she's asking all these questions, and I was like, I don't know. What do people usually do in my situation? Like, what do you guys usually recommend? And she was like, well, we don't really know anybody in your situation. I don't think there's anybody who's really been where you've been. And I fought a fog for days after that, and I just wished that I had like a friend that I could call and be like, yo, what did you do? I wish so bad. So during these conferences, I like to have, I call it an expert panel, expert at life. I don't know, we don't really say or something, but I want everybody who I've asked to be on this panel. So what we're gonna do, it's just kind of a fun way to, you guys can ask questions. Like, some of you have things that you relate to somebody up here. You wanna come up this way? Okay, everybody come on. You're gonna have somebody up here that you can kind of relate to most likely. They're gonna give you, some of them who didn't speak today are gonna give you a little brief synopsis of why I asked them to come up here, but they've all been through things that you, like, can't imagine in a lot of ways. Hey buddy, Mason, haven't seen you in a while. All right, where's my other girls? Where's Carrie and